extensive. I will review this, but I'll make it more about like questions for you guys since we're a smaller class, and I want to make sure that you guys understand what the concept is. So let me explain to you guys first what an EMR is. So an EMR is stands for Experience Modification Rate, and it's basically the rate that goes on and calculates your workers' compensation. So all companies have this. It's based on your safety and your payroll. So the way you qualify for an EMR rate is that your payroll needs to equal more than 200K. So that means that the company needs to have 10 or more employees in order to meet the requirements. Now, this might be less employees if you're in the iron steel. So if you're doing iron fencing, you could still have an EMR with 6 employees because those are higher wage class codes. So anything in the railroad, steel, fencing, underground, explosions, those guys automatically qualify for an EMR. But for everybody else, on the standard, you need to have 200 or more in payroll. So again, 10 employees or more. And the thing about the EMR is that a lot of companies don't know that there's a rate that calculates them. So they go on, if they have 0 claims, you know, they basically have had an EMR at 100. And it's not until that they get a notice from the doctor, a lawsuit from a workers' comp attorney, or a call from a broker saying your EMR has gone up. And that's typically what I have experienced in my years in insurance. But prior to this, why I niche and talk about the EMR a lot is because before sales, I was a workers' complaints manager for 6 years. So at age 22, I graduated from college and I got straight into the insurance world. And that's because an agency needed a bilingual person to help out with the claims manager. So I came in as an assistant. Literally, whatever the guy needed, print copies, look at things, organize, you know, like bare minimum, the minimum wage, do whatever he needed.
What school did you go to?
Me? Kelsey Fulgent.
Oh.
It was
Woo!
Don't they have an insurance program?
I think they do.
They have like the only one in the state.
I think, yes,
Yeah.
I think so.
To get a
I
bachelor's.
was a psych major.
Oh.
So I was going to do, I was actually, so I was doing ABA therapy. So I graduated, did that for 3 weeks and it wasn't my thing. Because you have to have a big heart to do that.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of patience.
My fiance has.
Mhm.
He's a BCBA.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so it takes a lot of patience, a lot of heart.
Yeah.
And it wasn't something for me. And the first day I tried it, actually, I got bit and I got attacked. And I was thrown on the ground.
Oh my gosh! By a patient?
Yeah, by a little girl. It was like this,
Oh.
you know, this girl was almost
My
bigger,
God.
taller than me, but she was 10 years old. And she had 4 people on her. So she was a very aggressive, and they warned me about her, but you know, it's my first day on the job.
Yeah.
I'm like, this kid's cute.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, it just knocked me out. And I guess she does that to test you to see how much she can control you. And I didn't know that.
That is wild.
Yeah, I got bit too. I was like, so I was like, okay, well, I mean, I still gave it a shot. And 3 weeks ago, I'm like, okay, I can't do this. Like,
Yeah.
so I'm like, I think I'm gonna try an office job. So I applied at all entry level, office, sales, everything. And this insurance agency said, we'll hire you on the spot if you say yes, because we really need someone like starting Monday. And I was like, I really need a job. I was like, I'll take it. I'm like, what do I need to do? They're like, okay, we need to verify that you can speak Spanish. And it was all white guys. And I was like, okay. So they made me read this thing, they translated, and then they're like, we have no idea what the fuck you said, but you passed. That's exactly what he said, yeah.
So they're testing you, but they don't know.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, they test face. I think they wanted to see if I was like lying about it or not. They're like, they gave me this serious face, and they started cracking up. Like, we don't have no idea what the fuck you said, but you passed. He's like, you can talk about cheese as long as they don't catch on to it. Yeah, I'm serious. That's the real story how I got hired into the insurance world. And then from there, that's why I really had to dig into it, because I'm like, okay, well, I don't, you know, I could translate, but I don't know what I'm talking about. Like, what are claims? What's an EMR? Especially at 22, too, because I came in like young and I came to talk to professionals, adults, companies. They didn't take me serious. They were just like, okay, well, who's this little girl? So I learned how to talk about claims and learned more about the importance of claims. So what an EMR is, experience modification worksheet. If you reach out to a company and they ask, or if you deal with contractors, especially if you do union work, public works, everybody goes based on the EMR. Your projects are all based on EMRs. So I have the clients that I have right now, majority of them are union contractors, and they are very reliant on it because contracts will not accept you if you have over 1.25. So anything over 1.25, you're out. So like if this client wants to do a medical, because this is a transportation client, she's a medical, she transports patients to Kaiser, to anywhere when you get dialysis. And her whole thing is transporting people, but she wants to work with Public Works, but she can't yet, not right now. We're still at 140, but that's the goal, to get her down. So one day when she wants to apply and get the federal contract, she can now be assigned to it and not be a subcontractor anymore. So it's very important to focus on this, because if your EMR is over 100, you're basically paying the percentage above it. So this lady, her EMR is 139, so she's paying about 39% more than the average industry, the average company in her industry. So unfortunately, non-medical transportation companies don't have their own, they don't have their own class code. They don't. They get bundled into the bus, shuttle, limousine, entertainment.
Oh.
So they get, and I learned that because I've tried, and there's actually a petition trying to go on that they need to have their own selective. Just because, you know, if they're ambulance chasers, or they're doing ambulance, you've seen those crazy videos of the ambulance is going and all of a sudden they get hit by like a random person. Well, this happens a lot here. Like they get hit by people, or they're backing up, and if they have the ambulance, there's a lot of accidents. But unfortunately, the state has them classified under bus, shuttle, van, limousine operations, and they pay about $9 base rate in premium per every 100. So because she has a 1.39, she's paying about $13 more. She's paying $13, so $5 more than the average. And what I was talking about earlier is that the EMR is a numerical representation of your safety performance, and it's based on your loss ratio. So here on this worksheet, when you look at it, and I'm going to show you guys a short thing. Do you mind if I show you? Use yours? Okay. So I was a workers' comp claims manager, and during those 6 years, I actually got trained my assistants. I trained people. I trained human resources. But the way I helped them understand workers' comp is through dividing this worksheet. And that seems to be the easiest. So when you look at a worksheet, you're gonna find when you pull this out for any company, you're gonna find the percentage right over here, right on top. And then when people say, well, how did they come up with this? Well, then it's gonna be right here in the bottom. So right here, when you fold it, it is this is right here's the formula on how to read the EMR. So when someone says, oh, well, how did the state come up with this? I always say people don't get lost. Don't get lost in this right here. This is just a bunch of data from the state, a bunch of numbers. Let's keep it simple. Let's keep it to the formula. So the formula here, and this is the exact one. Oh, this is actually a different one. The formula here is gonna be your A squared, which is the actual primary losses. And your actual primary losses is the A squared right here. So this one here is connected to this one here. And then I'll show you here there you go. All right, so actual primary losses, section A, is all of this right here. So this A box is the same one as over here.
This one.
So when people say, how did they come up with this? It's like your actual primary losses. So it's the losses you've had in the past 3 years. So in this example, this client has had 4 claims in the past 4 years, and then their actual primary losses are 43,172. So this over here is or the primary losses. But it's all based, if you look at it, there's a number right here, right next to it. And that number is the one on top, which is the primary threshold of 14,500. So what's a primary threshold? So a primary threshold is always gonna be on your right side, and it's pretty much, I always tell everybody, that's your magical number. So that is where you're capped out. So for this client, based on her class code and her payroll, she's allowed to have a claim. Her max claim is 14,500. So that's the max you could have for every claim. Now, if it's more, as you could already tell, all those claims over here are a lot more, and that's because they've been litigated. So all those past claimants got an attorney, they got more out of it. But the good thing is that the state has a formula that it caps you out, and it is a max that you'll be charged. But you don't want to reach this. So the way to keep it down is you want to keep it very low, like that little claim that we have over there. Which that one was just I think it was a slip and fall.
The 322?
Yeah, it was tiny.
So, for this particular code, the state gives them a threshold of 14,500. That's where they wanna, that's their max, but they wanna keep it under.
Mhm.
But if they're being litigated, they're going through a lawsuit, obviously it's gonna be a more.
Oh, yes.
There's a way to bring that down from the excess of the 14,500?
So ideally you want to keep it that way down, but honestly, when you have a litigation in there, anytime you get a workers' comp claim and it's litigated, your average is gonna be 25,000. And I could show you a different company that has that, they have 30K, 40K, but that's obviously because they have more payroll. So the more employees you have, basically the state will say, okay, you have more employees, you get a bigger number because more the chances of you getting sued is more likely than if you're small. But I have had clients, or they're small, they have 20 employees, but they've been sued 4 or 6 times, and then their workers' comp is through the roof. So yes, Tony, the state gives you a primary threshold that's based on data they collect. So if you are a plumbing contractor in the state of California, you have a different data that it will go about it. And then based on your payroll, you're going to have someone else. So I have like my husband, he's a plumbing contractor, and I have another client who does the same exact thing, but he's 20 times larger than my husband. So my husband's primary threshold is probably like 7,000, and then my other client, he's 30K. He's like 30K, and that's because he has a way bigger, he has
Does
100.
it depend on the type of work that they do? Like construction obviously is more at risk of getting, I used to work for a workers' compensation. So is it like for like construction or roofers that have to work? Is it bigger for them because there's more risk of them getting hurt?
Yes,
Okay.
and that's exactly very true. So she has a larger threshold because they're drivers. So the drivers that have a larger exposure because they're always driving, and they're carrying patients. So they're onboarding you, taking them out, and then sometimes those patients get crazy with them and attack them. So they
Get by.
yes, so they have that body injury exposure too.
Okay, got it.
And she hasn't been taking psychiatric patients, but it has happened in the past. So now it's more niche of people who are looking for dialysis. But yeah, those are the risk of things like that, or people that pick up prison mates. There's a lot of crazy things like that.
That's crazy.
So if, for example, with this client, if they only have that 322 claim, so long as it's under that threshold, would it technically mean they still have a 100% EMR?
So if they only had this one, let's pretend that this is the only claim they had. Their EMR would be way less. It would probably be like 80, 90.
Oh, so it
Very
goes
tiny.
below the 100. Got it. Okay.
It's very 90, but right over here, as you can see, I think it's in my next slideshow. Alright, so that's the magical number. The 14,500 is your maximum loss that you can have per claim. So let's say when I bring on a new client and we say, okay, your primary threshold is 1,500. So we cannot have a claim that's gonna be more. And situations do happen and people get hurt. Let's say, an employee drops a box on him, he gets put out of work, but we want him back in here. It's when they get an attorney that we lose control. Because once they get an attorney, it has to go through the process, and I'm like, okay, now what I do is just make sure that this employee is going to their appointments, that the attorney doesn't want $1 million, like in that case that I have right now. They'll do crazy things. They'll ask for a lot. So it's keeping that in control. So I will also review that on my end, saying, okay, well, what do we have? We have a box fell. How old is the guy? He's 40. He's 20. Is he diabetic? Or what are his circumstances? Things like that. But here, just on the mathematical side, I always tell clients, like, this is your magical number. This is where you want to keep your claims below it. Now, if someone gets hurt, a cut, and they need physical therapy, those claims are usually like $7,000, $5,000 max. They're not expensive. They're very easy, cheap going, and we want them to come back to work. So we take all the physical therapy they need, have them come back, and many times the employer will still pay for these employees when they're out. They'll pay them their full wages because they want to keep them happy. So I've had a lot of clients that even the guys out, they'll still pay them the full wages. We just want them to come back to work. They, don't get an attorney. Like, come back to work. We love you. And good employees will come back to work and do things. But you do come across circumstances where either the person had bad intention or they had a fallout with the management. Maybe they were about to get fired, or they had a situation where they didn't like the new supervisor, or they're looking for a new job. So every situation varies. So here I have 14,500 is the primary threshold. That's the max you have for each claim. It's based on your class code. So the class code is based on your industry and the payroll, and the WCRB changes this number every year. So every year the California State, the Workers' Comp Bureau analyzes this, and they base it off the number of losses they've had. So we've all seen car accidents. It's up through the roof. So anything transportation for the workers' comp, that thing's increasing big time. They're taking a big hit right now on the workers' comp side. Same thing with warehouses. We're having a big increase on warehousing. Warehousing and transportation have been hit on the workers' comp side. So
Why do you think transportation? I'm sorry, I know I transportation, but warehousing. Lack of safety or just?
It's just a lot of I don't know if it's just because there's been so many with Amazon growing and there's so many people hiring warehousing, but warehousing class was actually very low. It's very low, and they're just seeing a big loss in it, so they're just tend to increase it.
Interesting. Okay.
I'm seeing that because I have staffing agencies, and they hire warehousing. Warehousing is one of their class codes, and I've seen that thing double.
Wow.
Is it more like back injuries that they have, or is it all kinds?
Blood lifting.
It's a lot of back injuries, a lot of strains, a lot of back injuries, strains. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, so here is an important factor. So why 14,250 and not 14,500? And that you can see that right on the side on here. And the reason that they do it is because the state allows a 250K deductible per claim. So back in 2019, there was a report showing that not all employers were reporting workers' comp claims. So they wanted to make sure everybody's going following the system, reporting it, and not having all these late injuries. So they said, okay, for every claim that you report, we're gonna remove 250K deductible. So any workers' compensation claim that you get, you will automatically get a 250K deductible on it.
You might have answered this already, but who reports the claim? The employer or the carrier?
The employer.
Employer.
Okay.
Now, if it gets litigated, the attorney reports it to the carrier.
Okay. I know you made a video about it. How many days does that company has to report the claim?
Ideally, you have 30 days. Ideally.
What does
But-
that do? Ideally.
Right, so- You wanna do it within 30 days, man, because it's going to reduce the amount that, you know, the employee needs to be seen by a doctor. 'Cause you know, 30 days is a long time, especially if someone got hurt, someone's still working, it's gonna be bad. But anytime you do after 30 days, because of all the fraud we're seeing, on the workers' comp side, if you don't report within that 30 day and then see someone actually did get hurt, the chances of that claim getting denied are now higher. And it just puts a risk of real people that actually do get hurt. So the insurance company is gonna, because they're gonna ask you like Tony, like, you know about this injury 2 months ago, you just reported it to me now, why?
What happens if the employee doesn't report the injury to the employer, which sometimes I've seen it happen?
So if the employee doesn't report the injury to the employer, it's a big risk, because now you just 2 weeks later, 2 months later, like, yo, I got hurt, you know? I just didn't wanna say anything because I didn't know what the situation was, or I didn't know what to do, I was scared. But now it's more, so as an employer, if someone's saying they got hurt on the job, your duty is to report it, because that's a workers' comp claim in itself. Is it true? I don't know, you know, but if the employee's coming to you for advice and for help, you need to address it. Because if the employee isn't addressed, then they could go back to the attorney and actually say, hey, I went to my human resources and I said I got hurt, and they said, oh, well, too bad, or go to your doctor. That sentence to itself is music to the attorney's ear, like, okay, we got this, don't worry. There's rules, there's regulations, and you're gonna get covered.
And that's why